Welcome to another edition of your debate program Viewpoint on DBS Television. Viewpoint is divided into two parts. The first part has to do with the question and answer session, and the second part has to do with the debate. Yet issues have been going on over the weekend. We are talking about the easing of lockdowns. We are talking about the strike by some newspapers, and of course we are talking about school resumptions. Some of those topics will be discussed on the program in tonight's edition. And our guest for tonight, we are having Professor Mark Anthony. He is a social anthropologist. Good evening to you, Professor.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to the million viewers out there and to my fellow panelists. I believe that this is going to be a good evening for you, and I'm sure whatsoever we'll be discussing here will have effects in your education.
Mange Venashus, good evening. It's a pleasure having you.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers at home and to my fellow panelists who's there that other way.
You're watching Viewpoint. Stay tuned for the first part of the show. Question number 1. Is the strike by some newspapers in Cameroon a proof of government's negligence of the private media? I begin with you, Professor. Yes or no?
The answer is a yes and a no at the same time.
So which one do I take?
The yes and
to
the no.
To a greater extent.
Yes and the no.
Yes and no. All right, let us say so. He's going to give his viewpoint on that. Mange Venashus, where do you belong?
It is a yes answer, Vanessa.
A yes answer. Question number 2. Should fighting the coronavirus in Cameroon be a political affair, Professor?
Answer no.
No. Mange Venashus?
It should not.
It should not be.
Actually.
Question number 3. With the rise in cases of infection in Cameroon, is school resumption next month advisable? Mange Venashus?
No, Vanessa.
No. Professor?
Not advisable.
Not advisable. And the last question for today is easing lockdown rules in some sectors capable of absorbing the effect of the crisis in Cameroon? Professor, yes or no?
I don't think so.
No. Mange Venashus?
No, Vanessa.
No. These are their responses. Stay tuned for the debate. In our first question, we asked whether the strike by some newspapers in Cameroon a proof of government's negligence of the private media. That is what has been making headlines in some newspapers this morning. And Professor, you are on the balance, yes and no?
Yes. My reason for giving that kind of answer is based on the fact that primarily these private medias are businesses. And they are not run by the government. They are run by individuals for their personal profit. So in this case, should we answer that the government has neglected them? I would say no. And coming to the other direction, I would say yes. In relation to press freedom in Cameroon, that's where I have a serious problem with the nation of Cameroon and the regime at hand. Why? Because the focus of every democracy is to release the media as the fourth arm of the government. If it operates in that dimension, it will be able to actually promote democracy. But in Cameroon, the government, the regime is fighting against the media. And as a result of that, they have neglected the media, and in one way or the other is struggling to actually control the way the media operates. And since most of those running the businesses are running it in a political atmosphere, they tend on to giving into the government's hands. And the strike of this weekend, resulting to today's most of the newspapers are on blank, is a means to tell the government, okay, you have neglected us. Neglected us in what sense? Maybe there are dues that they are supposed to be giving them. They have not been able to pay that. Most of these newspapers, I'm sure every month or every week, they hand newspapers to government officials expecting to receive pay at the end. And if you see them striking, it's because that has not been done.
That has not been done, but
So
they have
the
been silenced for a long time.
To be silenced does not mean they are not heard.
All right.
Silence does not mean the people are not heard, they are heard. And for the fact that we are in a country where it seems as if it's a dictatorial regime that is oppressional, individuals become frightened and threatened to even utter a voice. And especially during this period of time where when you strike, the government actually releases its soldiers, let me use the word, the military or the security forces, to actually crack down on those striking. It becomes a problem for people to actually strike. So people are afraid to do that. A lot of them were afraid. So they took this opportunity because yesterday was the Press Freedom Day. So they decided to express themselves using the means they could. They didn't go out in the streets. They used the means they could. And I think it's one of the best ways that they express their idea.
All right, making their pen of value. Mange Venashus, you're of the fact that yes, it's a proof of government's negligence to the private media.
Actually, Vanessa, if I had shared a different opinion, I would not have belonged to that this very profession. And to say that when you ask for something from somebody, it means you have a legal right to ask for it. When I claim something from my parent, I have all the right to claim for. In every society, the media has been considered, actually is not considered, is recognized as the fourth arm of power in every society, because it is the thermometer in which we measure the level of democracy in that society. True. If I just sit in my village and I'm talking, I can talk the whole week, nobody will get what I'm saying. But if I get into any media platform, that is where it shows how free we are, how democratic our society is. And that is why the world considers the press, the media, as the fourth arm of the government. So, being the fourth arm of the government, it is largely run by the private sector. It doesn't consider the fact that being in the private hands, the state has no obligations to subvert the functioning of this of this sector of the economy. One, it brings in revenue to the state because there are taxes that are paid by these media houses. Two, it brings about employment because these media houses employ citizens of that country. So the state has to subvert that sector like it does in other sectors. We are living the crisis with this health crisis period, and government has been assisting. Government in other countries have been assisting sectors to make sure that they absorb the effect of this lockdown. Cameroon government did that just a few days ago when the head of state announced a special assistance to the enterprises, to some enterprises worth 25 billion francs CFA. Nothing was mentioned about the media that we know when we talk of lockdown. People are at home watching us, which means in the media is not locked down. Because when you look at sectors that are locked down, we talk about the health sector, we talked about the security sector, we talk about the military, we talk about the media. So these are some of the sectors that are, when we're talking of this lockdown, they are not. So being confined, this was supposed to be the first sector that the state was supposed to come in to help them function, given that the economy is completely down. So, if they are coming up, these private media owners are coming up striking, it is because they have understood that the state has done nothing. And your question says, is it the negligence on the part of the government? The government has neglected it. Vanessa, we have a Minister of Communication. If I think well, the Minister of Communication that we have, he has two functions. He is the Minister of Communication and government spokesperson. But we get more of government spokesperson in that minister or in that ministry than communication, because each time and again you get the minister going out, in a kind of defense between the government, non-governmental organizations, political parties or individuals. You scarcely hear this present minister talking about communication, talking about those within his ministry. So I think that we in the media feel that there is this negligence from our, the person who represents us first, and then the government in general, because he is supposed to be our way into the government, our gate into the government. So the former minister that we had, he used to carry out on unannounced visit, just surprise and land in DBS today and say this is this, this is this, this is this. That's we get the minister. We would want the minister to come to DBS today. Ask, we want to see your pay roster. We want to see your function. We want to see this. We want to see this. We want to see this. That is the minister. We feel that the government is regularizing our functioning, Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Manga Venashus, for your point of view. Not forgetting that we go through daily challenges such as intimidation from these various government officials, from individuals, and of course, we also go through harassment. Our second question, Professor, we were asking whether the fighting of the coronavirus in Cameroon should be interfered with the political affair.
I don't think for 1 second that fighting a war that is actually destroying everybody should become a political issue. This COVID-19 of a virus is actually a deadly and a dangerous virus that is not selecting who it is killing. It goes across the board. I don't know if you are a politician in which direction. It doesn't care. It doesn't look at you. It doesn't even try to measure the weight you carry. It doesn't look at your political stance or ideologies. All that doesn't count. What counts is that it wants to take your life. And so I believe that if we are supposed to fight it, there should be no politicizing over this particular issue. We should target it together and fight it. I think this is the best time when politicians should come together with the government, working together to see how we can fight this particular battle and win together. Because I am a little bit disturbed, and you see, I'm talking because I was following up something that happened last week when they went to hand over the gifts of
donations, health kits.
From one political leader to the Minister of Health. He actually rejected, or let me use the word, he directed the donor to the Minister of Territorial Administration in one way or the other, rejecting the gifts. In a moment where we need kits, we need test kits, we need to see how to jointly fight this particular virus. Rejecting it is like trying to say you don't belong to our party, and as a result of that, we don't need what you are bringing. And that is the worst step to ever take in fighting this virus. It's like we are interested in our political position more than the health and lives of individuals out there on the street and out there in the society. I believe as a government, the government should be the coordinator at this particular moment of each citizen who is standing to fight against this particular virus. And if the government can't actually play the part of a coordinator, I don't know who they expect to play that part. So I am a little bit disturbed at this hour because the number keep increasing. And look at it, the other day, World Health Organization came and was, instead to give let's say ambulances that could be used in transporting the sick, they were handing Prados. I don't know if Prados now are used for fighting diseases or this virus. Maybe that should be the new cure that the World Health Organization introduced to Cameroon, Prados. I think that's a means to corrupt Cameroonians the more. And in the midst of a crisis, we shouldn't be doing things like that. And it doesn't mean that the government can't take those Prados and also sell them to get what we need. We shouldn't be crying that we don't have money when the World Health Organization brought such things. Auction them and get money so that we pump it into fighting the virus. Don't keep the cars. I heard they were struggling to share them among health delegates in the central region. That hurts the most. It seems as if in a moment when people are suffering, some are supposed to be rejoicing. This is one of the things that makes me annoyed with my own country. And I believe that in one way or the other, they are listening to us out there. And I think that they should do something to unite. We should be uniting, not separating ourselves in camps. It is not the time for that.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your point of view. Manga Venashus, you are supporting what the professor just said.
Yes, actually, there is one thing that caught my attention when Professor was talking. You know, this virus knows no political leanings. Whether you are from CPDM or SDF, whatever party, the virus attacks anybody. Of recent, we were talking of the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who just recovered from the virus. This morning, the Moscow Times in Russia announced that Russian Prime Minister is equally infected with the virus. Now, you see that it is cutting across every strata of the society. It doesn't look at any other person.
Of our governor of the
Littoral region. The governor of Littoral region actually is just one of those who recovered from that virus. So, fighting the virus, all Cameroonians should come together. Let's forget about our political background. Tackle the virus. When the CRM party came up with this idea that they want to mobilize, gather aid and help in fighting the virus, if they were talking about Cameroon, about Cameroonians, about Kamto as a Cameroonian fighting the virus, I think we understand what it means, because it means any other person should come out. But when they start saying CRM party is doing this, it is not a fight for CRM.
Yep.
Or the CPDM saying that no, the CRM party has always been, used to being very... No, it is not CPDM affair. It is not CRM affair. It is affair that concerns... What about those who don't militate in CPDM and in CRM party? They are Cameroonians, and they expect the government of Cameroon. When the head of state came out with the Solidarity Fund, he did not call it the CPDM Solidarity Fund. True. He called it the Solidarity Fund for Cameroonians, for Cameroon to fight the pandemic. So each Cameroonians, we should sync our party, ideologies now, and come up with struggling to, trying to see how we can help. Vanessa, we will not refuse the fact that politicians always like to take this kind of an opportunity to, make gains out of it, so that when we come out of the crisis, then they will now talk to the people. You saw us doing this, saw us doing this. I think it is an attitude that we need to discourage and call on them that they should work as Cameroonians. When you work as Cameroonian, you come out here that this is what we want to do. Every other person will support you. But when you come out as a member of a political party, you streamline the fight into your political party, and it makes it difficult for you even. But if it were Cameroonians who are fighting, I think it will be easier. So fighting the virus should be a concern for Cameroonians, rich or poor, north or south, east or west, rather than I belong to this tribe, I belong. No, it is a concern for all Cameroonians, Vanessa.
Okay. Professor, your take on the third question. You are not of the fact that school resumption should take place in Cameroon.
Yes.
As we fight the coronavirus.
Yes, Vanessa. First, I was a little bit disturbed when the new measures, the 19 measures, were actually released. Yeah, there are some that were actually good, because they were in one way or the other actually promoting some businesses to boost the economy. But from what I discovered is that the interest of the government is not the citizens of Cameroon. The interest is boosting the economy. I believe that the economy of a country can collapse, but when the people are not, then that economy is useless. But when the people are actually strong, they can build any economy they want, the strongest of all. You see, when bars are opened, when nightclubs are opened, it has effect. And not to talk of schools are open, it has the greatest of effects. When children start going to school, you will never be able to limit a child from closing up with a friend. Mm-hmm. They will always close up. Social distancing will never be respected by those children. They want to play. And if in case you say, okay, only those who are in the higher classes should go to school,
or let's say examination classes,
it is still having a problem, because our youth of today are so recalcitrant in a way that at times when you tell them not to do something, you just directly told them to do it. And so that is going to be a serious problem, and I think it is going to cause a dangerous effect. A lot of people will be infected. A child can come, be infected in school, or might be on the street when he's going back home, or might be enter somewhere because they want to. Most of the children, they are writing exams today, the examination class students, most of them are, they drink in bars. Some of them even go to nightclubs. Some of them do all that. And when that happens, he can go to a nightclub in the evening, pick up the virus, comes to school, shares it with a neighbor, And that's how the thing multiplies in school. And before you know, the school is infected.
And given that the numbers keep rising.
Keep rising. You see, I am asking a question. When we were 115 infected, everything was closed down. Businesses were closed down. Transportation, they limited the number of persons that were carried. Okay, now that it has climbed to over 2,000, instead, we give the opportunity for more to be infected by actually telling these drivers, okay, if you have a 70-seater bus, you can carry your 70 persons. If you have a taxi, if you are carrying 3 behind, no, this time, or 2 behind, this time, you carry your 3 behind. Where's the social distancing we are encouraging people to actually respect? In this way, you discover that even the government is fighting against the health of the people. The government is, let me use the word, let me not say the government, the regime is promoting the increase of this particular virus because their measures that they have just implemented are not for the good of the citizens. So don't tell me that schools will be open and it will help. Schools open, it will destroy.
Manga Venashus, you are supporting Professor tonight.
Yes, Vanessa, I am of the opinion that schools should not resume come June 1. Because from every indication, we are on a very bad footing. You know, the infection of the virus keeps rising. We are past 2,000 infected cases. And we want that children should go back to school. What kind of infrastructure do we have in our schools that will be able to permit these children to even sitting in class? Can we sit in class that 1 meter apart? I tend to doubt the kind of structure that we have in Cameroon to facilitate that. Vanessa, it is not yet official, as if they did not say that by the 1st of June, only examination classes are resuming. They say schools are resuming, which means from 1 to university.
Yes.
I would rather think that
primary
from class 1, actually, from the lower, from nursery school, even schools. I would rather think that let us face the reality. We are just getting into 2 months of confinement, and the cases are increasing. Countries that are recording hundreds of deaths on a daily basis, they are still in confinement, Vanessa. They are still contemplating on easing lockdown. And when they say easing lockdown, they are easing lockdown on some particular sectors that we cannot do without. But with schools, I think that what they should have been doing is trying to see how we can reinforce this online learning so as to keep the children working. I know that the online learning has its own limitations. Yes, that's a fact. But then the limitations compared to the effect when students will go to school will be nothing, because the rate of infection would triple, if not. Because we see that children come to school from every angle, every nook and crannies of the town. The life of the teacher is at risk, the life of the student, because if the teacher doesn't infect the pupil and the students will infect the teacher. So I think we should face the reality. Let us open the sectors, because when we talk of bars and leisure places, I don't think that those are the necessary places. We would have been talking of opening up the economy in some other areas, not off licenses, not nightclubs. Transportations, we would have limited it the way it was.
The third question actually leads us into the fourth question, because we are asking whether easing lockdown rules in some sectors are capable of absorbing the effect of the crisis.
And actually, I go to that fourth question by saying that easing lockdown rules in the sectors like the bars off license, I don't think it would be able to absorb the effect of the economy.
Transport markets.
Yes, Vanessa, let me take for example, drinking sports. We are talking of an economy where workers, most of the citizens have been laid off. Now, these very citizens, from their savings, from their meager salaries, will go and drink. There is nothing that is coming in as income for them. How do you expect such an economy, the effect of such an economy to be absorbed? So we are living in a situation where we have to realize that let us instead ease lockdown in sectors that will be able to generate income for those who are locked down, so that they can absorb, so at least eating. Vanessa, we are not able to eat. Then talk of going and drinking, going and sitting relaxing in a park. Where do we have money from when we are not working? Number of Cameroonians are on technical lockdown because of this crisis. So I think that fifth question is simply the easing of this lockdown rules in these sectors. They are unable to absorb the economic crisis of this lockdown, Vanessa.
Professor, your take on that?
It's the same thing we are saying here. A couple of minutes ago, I was just mentioning here that the fact that they eased some of these lockdown measures that they actually took just in one way or the other exposes the intention of the government, or let's say the regime for us. I was on a platform yesterday and I was explaining this issue that you can't actually open bars, nightclubs, ease transportation as it is. We are supposed to, even at this moment, they are supposed to take draconian measures to actually fight this particular issue. You see, today, more than 50,000 people are dead in the United States. It's not because they were supposed to die. It's simply because, is it 50,000 infected or dead?
No,
infected.
Infected.
Yeah.
So, the reason is not because that is what was supposed to be done. Some states started easing the whole issue and they were uplifting the lockdowns. The same thing in Italy. The same thing in Spain. Why is Cameroon not copying from those who are actually using the right strategies? China used draconian methods to fight down this virus. It is true our economy is weak. We can't actually lock down everything. But getting to a place where you release the opportunity for people to close up, you are indirectly telling them go and die. Because you actually want to boost your economy, that is not what is important. The economy is not as important as the lives of the people. I was reading something that Jack Ma said the other day. He said, in a time like this, you shouldn't be thinking of how much you have made. Yeah. You should be thinking of making sure you survive. Because if you can survive in this time, that's the greatest gain you have made.
Actually.
If you survive, you will live to make more gains tomorrow. That is exactly what the Cameroon government is supposed to be doing. Preserve the lives of Cameroonians, and when their lives are preserved, we will jointly build the economy together. And to round up here, I will tell you this. As a Cameroonian citizen, expect no help from the government. Do your best to preserve and protect yourself as an individual. That's what you are supposed to be doing.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Mark Anthony. It has been a pleasure having you tonight.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. It's my pleasure too.
Hope to have you as often as possible.
I will be available for you.
Mange Venashus, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa.
And to you, our televiewers watching us back at home, thank you for staying tuned to DBS Television. It has been Viewpoint. Stay tuned.